with us right here on Amka Vibe Check. And that was my colleague earlier on with former Chief Justice David Maraga telling you why you should choose him as the next president come 2027 for that matter. Now, of course, we come into my segment where we're going to have a conversation about tech-enabled activism, the digital rise of democracy. Now, my guest this morning is Nyamisa Chelagat. She's a software developer and champion for civil tech. Nyamisa, thank you so much for being here. How are you feeling this morning?
It's so cold. I'm literally warming my hands with the coffee.
I know. And it's a great start because, you know, coffee gets you going for that matter.
Yeah.
But I want us to get straight into your story because you're a woman in tech, a software developer for that matter, but you also do a lot of advocacy. You know, your social media is awash with you, for example, speaking at funerals of your loved ones and telling them, listen, you cannot have politicians coming here giving a speech before even, you know, your loved one is interred. They are nowhere to be seen. And you're telling the people we can't have that, right? So you're very issue-based in the way you articulate your matters. So I want to understand, and I'm sure our viewers do, what led to that, especially given your background as a woman in technology?
Where do we start? Do we start with how I got into tech or how I got into activism?
Because it's the foundation of, you know, the activism. So please do.
Yeah. So I think it's a bit of an interesting story. So at some point, I think in late 2022, when ChatGPT first came out, first dropped, I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, the world is moving and I don't know where we're going, you know. So I thought about it. I think I played around with the idea for a while. I thought of getting into tech. I thought of how to get into tech. So I started self-learning a bit of code.
All right.
But self-learning is actually pretty hard. So after some time, a friend of mine introduced me to ALX. It's a boot camp. I went through the program, checked it out. I decided to take the software engineering course. It's a 1-year course. It's very intensive. And I think when I decided to get into this program, I had no idea where I'd end up. I thought I'd just be, I don't know, maybe I'd look for a job somewhere and, you know, transition into tech or something. But June 2024 found me right towards the end of the bootcamp program, and I was doing my project for the bootcamp, and we were at the height of now the movement. That's when X spaces were blowing up, and everybody was talking politics and all that. And I remember thinking to myself, what can we do, like in the tech space, to help the whole situation?
Right. So hold on to that, because I want to engage our viewers with our question of the day, and then you can tell us how you got into that politics, for that matter. Right. So we have our question of the day, of course, for you, our audience. We're asking you this morning. Now, what is your take on digital activism and its role in championing for democracy? What's your take on digital activism and its role in championing for democracy? Our WhatsApp line is right there on your screens. And remember, our handles on X and Facebook are the same, and that is at K24TV. Please do let us know your thoughts and perspectives. We'll be reading your feedback just shortly. Right, Nyamisa. Now, you're on the onset of, you know, the end of this boot camp, and now you're wondering what to do to be part of politics.
So I think this movement caught us at a time when a lot of us were desperate to be heard. Earlier that year, if you can remember, we had the Femicide March, and that was the first time I ever went to a protest. And I think it changed me. I think for a lot of women especially, that was the early 2024 was very instrumental to what went on to happen later, because during the protests, I think for the first time ever, so many women came out to the protests. And at this point, I was finishing my project, and I remember posting on X. I had done a small blockchain voting thing for my project. So I remember posting it on X and asking people, like, is there something we can do using technology to change, something like our voting systems? And I think it just blew up because so many people were looking for solutions. And because of that, we ended up with a team of 10 volunteers, actually. And we started working on something then. By then, our idea was maybe building the blockchain voting platform. But around the same time, the abductions had just started happening. So we were basically in a crisis, yeah? And there was no proper way of following up on these abduction cases, who's back, who's not, who died, who came back alive. So there was a couple of requests that we should work on a missing persons thing, hence the Kumbi Trace idea.
Which is now the project.
Yes, which is now the project we are working on. I'm wearing the T-shirt today, but yeah, it's cold, so... Yeah, so we started working on it. We built the website and we started posting on social media and trying to amplify the cases and following up with families to find out if they've found their loved ones. Yeah, and we worked on that for quite a while. Till now, we're still working on other projects, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the missing persons, the projects, that is, you're working with different organizations, communities, and the like to continuously provide awareness.
Yes, yes.
How many, numbers of missing persons
Yeah.
are there?
Yes. And while doing the project, I think one of the most concerning things that came up was the number of young men that go missing. The majority of the people that go missing are young men, between the age of, let's say, 19 to 26, 27. So mostly just Gen Z young men. And most of them were abduction cases, unfortunately. And on top of that, it's mostly young men from low-income areas that are mostly affected. So that just goes to show how the state targets a specific demographic of people, mostly people who are disenfranchised, mostly people who can't afford to fight for themselves. And I think that's why, on the question of digital activism, I think it's very important for people to be vocal about these issues on social media. Otherwise, so many people will just disappear and we'd never know.
I see what you mean, and that's quite a critical and vital aspect because searches are still ongoing and they're still registered as missing.
Yes,
as what we know right now. Now, let's go back to the civic part, of how you're using technology, for the education of the masses and the like. Let's begin with the characteristics of different pages on social media, right? One of the things that I know you have to do is be very vocal, be very bold. Now, if you take a space like X, from before, even when we were calling it Twitter, you have to say things with your chest because if you do not, the attacks are coming in left, right, and center, and you're someone who's vocal. Someone will come at you, either they're actually joking or not, you will come back with some.
They actually mad at me. I would like to apologize officially.
What did you do?
I don't know. I don't know what I said. But yeah, I would like to apologize officially. Please, guys, forgive me. Don't cancel me. But social media is a crazy place. It needs a thick skin sometimes. But we are also at a very emotional time and a very sensitive time. So it's very easy to trigger people because people are hurt, and people are frustrated. So I think all of us are just on the edge at this point. So a little thing can just
set people off.
It will set people off.
So how do you balance it? Because they're the cues then, and most people rather are putting their information or messages out, whether they want you to know more about governance, about politics, whatever awareness it is in that particular quarter. How are you balancing that out? Like you said, it's an emotive time.
I don't know. I understand the importance of social media, especially as a medium of communication nowadays. And also, I've just always been a social media person, a Twitter person, let me say, an
To be
X
specific,
person, yes.
yeah.
So I don't know, just some level, I think there's a certain addiction to X. Sometimes you wake up in the morning, you're like, today I'm not getting on that platform because it's toxic and there's too much, there's information overload. And if you're not careful, you might end up in an echo chamber of very toxic information. But I think it's just me, I guess. I'm a very vocal person, a very social person. And for a very long time, X has always been a very conversational place, rather. So I've always thrived in that space, let's just say. So when we talk about balancing it out, I don't think there's really a way to balance it out. There are days when things will go wrong. There are days when things will go right. We are very many people. We can't agree on everything. We'll differ on things. But a lot of the time, it's not personal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for people who are using technology to push activism, and like I mentioned, matters of governance, what should they understand the most about the time that we are in when they're using these platforms to bring awareness or just put their thoughts and opinions out?
I think there is a misconception, and I think this is the same misconception that the older generation had when June 2024 last year happened. And I understand where they're coming from when they say social media is not a real place and ground, blah, blah, blah. But social media is one of the biggest mediums of communication now. The TikTok and the Facebook and the X and Instagram. And mostly, let me focus on X and TikTok, for instance. Nowadays, everybody who's coming out of high school, the first thing they want to do is, get a smartphone, get on TikTok. It doesn't matter where they are, everybody's on TikTok. And that was very evident last year during the protests in how it was used to mobilize people, right? It's a very good medium of information. And I think there has been a change in a political landscape that maybe the older generation are still not caught up with, in that we no longer have to depend on like old school media to get information. And it's very difficult for, let's say, a politician to go anywhere, Kamukunji grounds, Kasarani, wherever, and gather. You can't gather 500,000 people, Maybe if you fill Kasarani with, I don't know, maybe 60,000, 70,000 people. But social media is the only place where you can hold a political rally, for instance, with 1 million people. Yeah. So I don't think it's right to dismiss social media in the political and activism space. If social media was as useless as they want to make it look, I don't think the president would have come on X spaces to address people.
There's a feeling that it is not yet understood, like what you're saying, that it has power and movement. But the political class still deems it as something that is wavering.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a grounding, and that people speak what they want and they forget, and the next thing they move. And I'll connect that with the George Ruto Nganya Matatu mood, right?
Yeah.
So there's a contradiction here where some people are saying, even some younger people, Gen Z, you cannot support the son of the president and still say one time to the president. Okay. So what is your perspective on that?
I think, so the argument on social media about this was actually quite interesting because there were very many, sometimes funny perspectives, because there are people who are saying, the people who are complaining, ni wale wakuja. Wale wakuja are those of us who came from Ushago to Nairobi, those who came on Bukinya to study and stuff.
Right.
But I don't think there is any change or growth he has brought into the culture. Matatu culture has always been there, Ghana culture has always been there. It has been there since those of us who are Kukuja, we came to Nairobi in 2011, we found it. Those of us who lived in, those who lived in Nairobi were here with the Matatu culture before the president's son bought 2 matatus. So let's not blow it out of proportion. But at the same time, we also need to be realistic. We are aware that he's not going to get 0 votes or anything. Like in 2027, we don't expect him to get 0 votes. Like, let's be serious. But the plan is to make sure we get more votes than him, way more votes than him. So, and also people are curious, and people don't have jobs, and I don't know, people are idle. So I don't think them going for that concert is a huge reflection of anything. But yeah, we are still working on convincing people. So maybe the next time he has a function, less people will show up, hopefully.
Right. But one of the arguments, again, from the political class is there's an awareness of politics that you need to have. It's in political science, it's in all those aspects, because you cannot dissociate what you're saying you stand for with a support, even if it's something that you like, even if it's something that is as organic as culture. Culture is there, it supersedes things. But how do you balance something that you're, vocal and fighting for when it's an extension of this? Will it make what you're fighting for feel not as important?
Personally, I think it would. For me, it would. I've seen people argue otherwise, but I think we have a lot of work in terms of political education and how some of these things are used to...
In what demographic?
Among young people. I'll focus on young people because we are trying to get a majority of the votes here. The young people are the majority, right? So, in fact, we said earlier our parents can leave their IDs in the house. They don't take a day off on election day if they want, because we don't trust their choices too much right now. But young people, there is almost 14 million voters amongst the between 19 and 35-year-olds. That's the Gen Z and the millennials, basically. If the young people can just focus on, like the same way we came together on 25th of June last year and this year, if we can come together like that for the election day, I don't think we'll need to worry about what the political class is doing and whatever it is, whatever chaos they're trying to create and whatever ways they're trying to get into our cultures and our spaces and all that.
All right.
Yeah.
So when you're conducting, awareness among different crowds, I've seen you areas za mashinani, I've seen you uptown, even on, former CJ David Maraga's trail. You work as a volunteer.
Yeah.
Yes. What is the one thing that you notice from our masses now? Because we don't want to assume that just because some people are aware, and even that they are older, that they are aware, there's still, like we said, that apathy, that notion of we need to be given something small, And for example, former CJ David Maraga is saying, listen, it's issue-based. I have nothing to give you, but I will solve A, B, C, D. Which are your issues? Are we ready for issue-based kind of awareness politics, or are we still struggling with personality kind of politics?
I think we have a very big fight ahead of us, because I think there's behaviors that have gotten ingrained into us as Kenyans. We expect handouts a lot from politicians. It's because we got so used to it. You see a politician, you expect they'll give you money, right? And also, even us as a society, there are behaviors we have that are very wanting in general. I think we need to work a lot on ourselves before we can change anything in the country. And I honestly think we still have a long way to go. We have a lot of work to do. But I believe it's work that can be done. If again we come together the way we've been coming together for all these other things.
Yeah.
Last year we had people translating the finance bill within days into very many languages. Yeah. Same way we can speak to all the other people that we need to speak to. For those who feel like they're enlightened enough to speak to other people and explain to them why we need to shift our mindset from the old political mindset to now the new political mindset, whereby we focus on the issues and not the personality and how entertaining they are and how flashy they are, But it's going to be a lot of work.
Okay,
Yeah.
that is noted. Let's take a look at our question of the day once again. This is what we had asked you earlier. Now, what's your take on digital activism and its role in championing for democracy? What's your take on digital activism and its role in championing for democracy? Our WhatsApp line is on your screens, and our handle on X and Facebook are the same, and that is at K24TV. Now, Linda from Nairobi says digital activism is powerful. Look at how Kenyans united online to demand accountability. Hashtags might seem small, but they pressure leaders and raise awareness fast. Thank you very much for your perspective, Linda. Brian from Kisumu says it's a double-edged sword. It helps mobilize and inform, yes, but it stays online and no action follows. It's just noise. We need more offline movement too. You'll tell us about that. Nyamisa Zawadi from Mombasa says social media is giving the youth a voice. Before we felt unheard, now we can trend a cause in minutes. That's democracy in motion. Okay, Zawadi, thank you for that. Kelvin from Thika says sometimes it's performative. People post just for clout. If you don't show up in real life, your post doesn't count as activism. Okay, quite interesting, Kelvin. Thank you. Shiko from Nakuru says, digital spaces have made democracy more accessible. Not everyone can go to rallies, but everyone can post, share, and stay informed. Okay, then. Right, thank you, Shiko, for that. Now, Yemisa, you've seen the two perspectives here is, yes, we can tweet, we can be on Instagram, we can be on TikTok, we can be wherever, but if it doesn't translate to the ground, which you saw was the issue during the protest last year, you know? Like some people are like, hey, my favorite influencer is not doing this too. And then they're not showing up to the protest. People just had to like marry their, you know, personas with a cause and a movement. So you can begin, we're about to go for a short break, but briefly, you can tell us your perspective on that.
I think they're right to say if you don't come out in person, then mostly you're just making noise. Because at some point we'll have to come out. Yeah? Right. Like for instance, we can't talk about change and you're not registered as a voter, for example, and you don't show up on voting day to make the change that you've been talking about, then it's useless. You know? I think social media is very important as a medium of communication, just to be clear. Okay. But further than that, you have to show up in person and put your money where your mouth is or your body where your mouth is.
You know, the big question especially is the voter registration. And when we come back from the break, you'll be able to give us your perspective on that because some young people are not for that. We've seen that. So we're taking a short break right here on Amka Vibe Check. You're watching Amka Kenya. We'll be back with this conversation. Do stay with us.